And complete the music segment. Let's move along with the presentation. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Maze. Technically speaking, I will be hosting as well as presenting today. My name is Josh Blaylock, and I will be joined by a co-presenter, Mr. Parker Dunbar. Parker, thanks for presenting with me.
My pleasure, Josh. Or I guess I was kind of like strong-armed into this, but I'm happy to be here.
I'm glad to hear you're happy to be here. You're becoming such a regular face on this that most people, I think, might be disappointed if it was just me. And so I was like, all right, cool. We'll bring Parker along again. That's good. But all right. So today, a little bit of our housekeeping before we get into the actual title. For those of you that are new to this, I love seeing that there are regulars coming back. And so you guys know the drill. That's awesome. But for those that are new, we call this an unwebinar for a specific reason. And that is that we want it to be webinar-like in terms of you're getting new information, but we want it to not be webinar in terms of you feel like you're just being talked at. We want you to be able to engage beyond just Q&A. So there are multiple ways we encourage you to do that in our unrules of engagement. You are able to turn your camera on, as many of you already have. Kudos to all of you. That's awesome. So if you're comfortable with that and you want to, go ahead and flip that camera on. We look forward to a face-to-face chat where possible. Your mics are muted in the interim, though, but we encourage you to throw that hand up in Teams, and we will unmute you so you can ask a question. And have a back and forth conversation if necessary. We want this to be back and forth. We want to bring you information, but we want to get to know each other and have you be able to really get a feel for what it is that we're talking about and flesh that out as much as you need to. So that's it. Not a whole lot of rules here. And please, I'm a very on-the-go speaker. I'm not a very scripted speaker. Parker, same way. So if you have a question where we are mid-sentence, throw that hand up and we will stop and acknowledge it. And if Parker is speaking and I see one of you has a question, I will most definitely interrupt Parker to ask the question. So we want to keep this going. We want to keep it fresh. We will have Q&A at the end, but stay engaged with us on this journey. And of course, we'll be doing a giveaway. Hopefully a Speak 275 and Panicast 20. That is the current plan. But
Josh, you really like backpedaled on we're doing a giveaway after telling people that
we are doing a giveaway.
There we go. I like the sound of that a lot better.
We hopefully the devices that we're giving away are these two devices. Nevertheless, we will be giving away great video and audio device to a winner this time. So if you are here, congratulations, you are eligible. Those that registered and didn't show, well, they're not. So you all are already on the winning path today. Thank you for being here. Please, look at the enthusiasm. That's amazing. Good job, Ian. All right. Keep an eye out on the email that you registered with, because that is where we will get in touch with you based on the attendance list and our random drawing if you are the winner. So watch out there and we'll coordinate shipping if that's the case. And my single click on this mouse is doing a double click, and it's really frustrating me. Okay, so today's session is entitled Rooms on the Go, Partner-Centric Solutions for a Mobile Meeting Room. And I maybe didn't title this totally correctly. It should have been a little more centered on interactivity, collaboration, rather than the mobile part. Mobile is fairly key to most of what we're going to talk about today, but as you will see, it is not 100% across the board what we are talking about. The theme is going to be touch and enhanced interactive collaboration. With that, before we get right into the content, feel free to pull out that smartphone if you're not watching from it, and snap that QR code. That should take you over to our Technically Speaking landing page, which we do need to update. So bear with us on the updates there. But we will have the next couple months here sorted on it relatively quickly. But you should bookmark that landing page, because it's where you will go to not just see what's new, what's coming up, but also if you missed past sessions, you can check those out there. We've got them recorded. And it's not as much fun to watch them in the past, because you don't get to watch us make the mistakes as we make them, or heckle us, or watch me poke fun at Parker as I attempt to various times. but it's still a great way to catch up on what you missed. So head on over there, bookmark it. Okay, let's jump straight into this. So I'm going to go back a couple slides. My animations were a little excited and went all the way through on this slide. So let's talk about what the room scenario is that we are specifically addressing today. And this is a need that was, I think, desired, recognized, requested, whatever it may be, a while back. I'm going to give you this example in this timeline largely from a Microsoft viewpoint, but this does mostly pertain to the industry scene in this regard, this room type in this regard in general, Zoom rooms, team rooms. But I'm going to tell this from the Microsoft side of things. So Microsoft, whether it be customer requests, interactions, whatever it were, decided that there was a need to solve for where there were certain rooms where customers wanted a more interactive collaboration experience. They needed this to happen for things like digital whiteboards, where you could have someone in the room do whiteboarding with somebody else on the far end. You had people that just wanted to go into that room and actually do brainstorming sessions, get really advanced with how they were collaborating in that room in a digital means. And so they came up with a solution that originally complemented their Teams Rooms solutions, and that would be the Microsoft Surface Hub. Now, over time, they've come up with new versions of that, Surface Hub 2S and now 3. And now Surface Hubs can be a Teams room in and of themselves. But this solution, while being amazing, was also much more than a Teams room, right? It's running its own Windows OS. You can run it in Teams rooms, but you can also do a lot more with a Surface Hub. It was truly meant to be this in-room hub of interactive collaboration where you're pulling up, online resources if you need. You're dragging that stuff all into a touch-based collaborative space that could interact with your room systems. So great solution. But what then ended up happening over time is that a lot of customers said, this is amazing. This is great. Some of us are going to adopt it and deploy a bunch of these. And then some said, yeah, this is amazing and it's great, but it's more than what we need in our rooms. We need something a little more simple. We want the touch. We want the ability to go up and annotate on the board or do whiteboarding. We want it to be mobile like we have with the Surface Hub, but we need a simpler scale. We want it to be an MTR-only device. It doesn't need all the extra greatness that comes with the Surface Hub. We want something that is just going to be a room system, letting us cart it around. Some cases, maybe it'll be mounted, but we need that interactive capability. So that's where a number of OEMs started to get involved and said, all right, we've got a solution. It'll be more cost effective. It will be an all-in-one based solution. It will be on a cart, but it will be certified as an MTR or a Zoom room, and it will be running Android instead of Windows like the Surface Hub. Good on all those counts. Checked that box for a lot of end customers. They thought, okay, good. Now we if we didn't go the Surface Hub route because of these aforementioned reasons, these might be solutions that will fit the bill. But a number of things have come up since then that some might consider limiting if you go the all-in-one route path. Yes, the all-in-one route path is often the simpler route, but it's not necessarily always going to be the right solution for a number of reasons that Parker and I are going to ever so eloquently and masterfully display to you today of why you may want to consider a different route for this form factor than the all-in-one.
Hey, Josh, wait, before you go to the next slide, I have what I learned and consider to be the coolest piece of Surface Hub fun fact. So the OG Surface Hub from Microsoft, the really, really big ones, came in these custom, beautiful birch plywood enclosures that Microsoft paid for. And they realized that the quality of the wood in those enclosures was so high that they actually included instructions with your Surface Hub of woodworking projects you could do to repurpose your packaging from your Surface Hub. So if anybody bought that giant Surface Hub back in the day and has their planter kit from their Surface Hub moving crate, definitely drop a note in the chat if you remember that.
That is awesome. Just as a side note, the solutions we will be talking about today do not contain any birch wood. Just so you know. But that's amazing to know. Wow, that's quite the choice in materials there. Okay, thank you for that interruption, and it was a good one. It was a fun fact indeed.
Technically speaking,
Yes, technically. Now we're getting technical on a whole different direction. That's really cool. So the solution, we highlighted kind of what the industry came up with as a solution, and we're going to cover a little bit more about what that solution means here. These first two pillars are common to both what we're going to talk about today, as well as the all-in-ones. Now, the third pillar is where we really start to differentiate and talk about why it may be, in our opinion, always is a better route to go, the modular route. First, mobile. Okay, so we're setting the table here of this whole solution. We're setting the table for kind of what Parker's going to share next, and that's going to be some use cases. But the mobility of most of what we're going to cover today is key for a few different reasons. One, if you want to be able to readjust where your conferencing setup is in the room, having something on a cart lets you wheel it around and move it. Okay, that's great. We had the display and the video bar and all that oriented on one side of the room. Guess what? We've now decided to pivot and change after COVID, and with the new hybrid way of work, we want a new style of table. We want a lengthwise room instead of a wider room. So we want to move everything. Now we got to remount it all. We got to shift it all onto the walls, rerun cables. With a card-based solution, you're simply moving it in the room. So that's step number one of why that's important. Because you can move it, you can then take it into other rooms if you need to. Yes, you will need to unplug it and replug it into the new room, let it boot up. But this solution is now not confined to one space. This is amazing if you've got open work concepts. Maybe you've got a little cluster of huddle rooms that you don't necessarily need a solution in each room because they're not always used for video conferencing, but you want to be able to move one around between them. This is a great option for that. Going beyond that, it gives you alternate mounting options that are less permanent to your rooms and walls. So in an environment where you're still trying to figure out what exactly you're doing with your real estate in a new hybrid way of working world, you might be a little bit hesitant to put permanent additions or markups on walls and in places. This frees you up from that. So mobile gives you a lot of benefits right out the gate. The touch-enabled component of the solution is key to everything we're talking about. This gives you that in-room digital whiteboard. It's great to have a whiteboard in the room, and through content cameras, you can share that in-room whiteboard with others from afar. But to truly collaborate across the whole meeting, no matter where you are, you need digital whiteboard access, which means you need to be able to touch the display in the room. And so you need a good, responsive touch display, high quality, large display. We're not talking about the little displays that you put on your desk at home. This is for multiple people in a room. Then the touch-enabled piece also solves for brainstorming and collaborative sessions. It's not always going to be about doing a digital whiteboard between participants in different locations. Sometimes people will want to go into that room, pull up a Microsoft whiteboard on the display, and just start working together, mocking things up, writing over different mock-ups, adding notes in there. And finally, if you've got space-constrained rooms that maybe you don't necessarily care about touch display for many other purposes, but you also don't have a lot of space for putting a table in the room and therefore having a touch controller on the table. It's smaller, it's a huddle space. You want it to be more all-in-one in form factor, but you want the best of all worlds. So you may have a touch-enabled setup in that room. This is not even necessarily a cart-based at this stage, just touch-enabled. So now you walk into a room, you've got a couple chairs, no table, and a touch display on the wall with your camera, mics, speakers. Now, this third pillar is where we really get to cooking. This is where we talk about being modular. This is where we talk about how we're differentiating in solutions here. And modular, by going the modular route, where you're adding in components to the solution rather than having a all-in-one single device with all the pieces baked in around the edges, What this allows you to do is create a truly best-in-class solution. Okay, with an all-in-one, it's going to be limited in use for a number of reasons. For instance, let's say your use case for the all-in-one goes away after a year or two. You realize you don't really need it anymore. You're not going to repurpose any of the components in it. It's an all-in-one. You either use the whole device or you don't. However, if your needs change and you say, you know what, we don't need this all-in-one space anymore, but we could definitely take this video bar and use it in a new room that we are setting up down the hall, you can decouple it from the solution and use it. Hey, we have need for this display in this room with touch features on it. That's great. You can now repurpose it and use it. You can take do various things with it as your needs as an organization change. And what that translates to is a better ROI in the long run, right? You're not limited in the uses for this solution. On top of that, being modular lets you be best in class because now you're saying, I don't have to settle on the type of display and the quality display and the quality cameras and mics that a certain manufacturer put in an all-in-one. They say this is a great solution altogether, and I'm just going to take their word for it that all the components are great, and hopefully they are. In this case, you're able to say, I'm making sure that I have the best on the display side of it. And I'm making sure that when I'm being heard in that room, I'm going to choose a company who is known in the industry for having premium industry-leading audio with a rich heritage in it. And by the way, I'm going to make sure that I'm being seen very clearly, and not just being seen clearly, that the whole room is being seen because the company I'm going to choose knows how to do 180 degrees and they know how to do it well. So you're getting best in class across all the different components, not just settling on different components because of getting an all-in-one. Now that I've set the table and kind of, queued up the conversation a bit, we're going to have Parker step in. I've been amused by the different areas where he's kind of laughed a little bit here. I want to hear his take on some of this, but he's going to jump in and talk a bit about the use cases that would pertain to such a solution. Parker?
All right. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it. So I've spent a lot of time working with resellers, talking to end customers about incorporating interactive touch in their collaboration spaces. And so one of my observations from talking to people is that a lot of times there can be an initial draw of bringing in interactive touch. It's a new technology. It's something you want to bring. It's really, like, technically speaking, not that new, but we'll still give it a, costs have come down a lot. This is now much more price affordable for a typical meeting and collaboration space. But at the same time, eventually that, PO gets to a decision maker who has to look at it and go, why are we paying twice as much for this touch-enabled display as a non-touch display? So one of the things that I wanted you to be able to take away from this session or join in a collaborative conversation about is ways that these touch-enabled displays can add that value for different types of customers. Because I truly think that no matter what vertical a customer is in, and even what teams within that particular customer organization are using the technology, that there really are applicable use cases. A lot of times, coming from an engineering mindset, I look at a touch display and I think, oh, you know what, this is great because sometimes people want to send me a diagram and they want to ask, how do I connect the cables? Where am I putting HDMI? Where am I putting network? Where am I putting power? And when you have that interactivity, especially when you're having a real-time conversation with someone, it's so powerful to be able to have them see, for those visual learners, the line get drawn in real time. It gives them the opportunity to ask the question, even better than animated slides, presentations, drag and drop. Just being able to sketch out that simple idea of what you're trying to do can be a great communication tool. So this is something that works on the brainstorming side for teams when they're trying to come up with new ideas. It works on the sales side when you're trying to go through discovery, when you're trying to understand what your customer needs are, and then to help you articulate those needs, because it's that ability for you to start having that real-time add-on, so somebody really feels like the meeting has been personalized to them, to the fact that they're there and the conversation that you're having. And as Josh mentioned earlier, being able to use the whiteboarding, the digital whiteboarding that's built into a Teams meeting or built into a Zoom meeting means that whether you are there physically present or in the room, or you're someone who's joining that meeting remotely, everybody has access to that canvas at the same time, and they can collaborate together at the same time. You look at sort of the history of being a remote worker in these sort of creative, ideative, drawing out sessions. When it was just a whiteboard in the room and you were someone who was joining remotely, you maybe just got a picture of the whiteboard at the end of the meeting, or you had someone, point their laptop camera over at the board. Now that we can actually bring that digital whiteboard into the meeting, your presence or your physical location is now a non-factor in your ability to contribute and to see what's happening in real time. So that's a message that I've seen play really powerfully in that enterprise and SMB, the kind of more corporate or government space, is real-time engagement, kind of real-time feedback for any team within an organization. If you go to the next one, Josh, I talk a little bit about education because I think this is another arena where K-12 districts, higher ed, has already been using interactive touch. I would say the adoption rate is much, much higher in those audiences compared to enterprise organizations. But at the same time, combining that interactive touch with a UC collaboration platform so that now not only are we going up and having some interaction on the display, but we're also engaged with a remote attendee. That's something that's a little different, and that's not something that every classroom is typically equipped for. So this solution on a cart, kind of on wheels, you think of like the old AV cart when you were in school growing up and somebody wheeled it in so that you could watch a movie for a day. Well, now the technology has advanced so much that you may be wheeling in this mobile touch-enabled video conferencing experience. And that allows classrooms to have access to experiences that you never would have had access to before. You can have these global exchanges where you have classrooms in one part of the world calling another part of the world to have that dialogue and exchange between students. You can have virtual field trips where you're bringing in professionals or you're taking students to settings where they wouldn't have the opportunity to be there on a regular basis. So it becomes a really inspirational tool within that school or within sort of the group of teachers that have access to that resource. And it's something that they're not necessarily going to use every day and something that the classroom is not already equipped for. When I was looking for, is there any stock footage of video conferencing in classrooms, there's really not. A lot of it is really more of a projector screen, we know that's very traditional in K-12, showing someone, and then the teacher has put their PC speakers facing the room, or they've got a handheld microphone that they've somehow, through the equipment in the room, looped in to their computer. But those really take a lot of time to set up and provide a pretty poor experience for students in the classroom. And so being able to take this cart, wheel it in, have it ready to go for that conversation, and then take it out to go to the next room, because those are also cost-sensitive customers. And so you want to make sure that they're able to get a lot of value out of this and that they're not, paying for something that's only getting used once a week or twice a week. You also have the ability to then bring this into other spaces on a temporary basis. So you think about a staff conference room or a library where you might have outside groups come in. There's a ton of use cases in education where this combination of interactive touch, portability, and video conferencing for a small to medium-sized group provides a lot of value that's not met by other systems that are already there in their spaces. All right, spiel over, Josh. I didn't see if you were laughing at me at any point. Were you laughing?
No,
was there anything funny?
I was trying to read questions and address a few things. So luckily you got freed up from me critiquing you too deeply there. But
that's lucky for me.
There's some good questions. There's some good things. A couple of them are a little bit more, geared toward the differentiation, right? Where we differentiate from the all-in-one offerings that are out there. And so we'll get into a little bit of that as we talk about some specific scenarios in a minute. But what's key to all this is flexibility and choice. right? And that is where we're saying you're not settling for whatever the all-in-one gives you across all these components. You're saying, I have these particular video needs. I'm choosing these features, these video capabilities, because that's what we need in an organization. We have this requirement, that requirement, and I'm not going to be pigeonholed into my video capabilities based on whatever the camera is in the all-in-one and what it can or cannot do. I'm going to decide what I'm going to be able to do. So if you're standardizing on Jabra and you're standardizing on that Panacast experience, you don't have to sacrifice that experience in a room where you need this type of form factor in order to put an all-in-one in there. You can say, I'm going to choose this best-in-class partnered solution that gives me devices I know I can manage and update and control the feature sets that I need. So that's really what's key. That's what we want to underline as far as why you would go this route versus an all-in-one. There are clear benefits. There are simplicity benefits on the all-in-one side, but we think that it's a better, more freer, more flexible solution to be able to pick and choose the pieces that you need and still deploy them in that same type of way.
I'm excited that we got asked about differentiator because I know we've got the differentiator that you're gonna get to see. So hopefully you will agree with me after you see it. That there's a lot of value in taking this route as opposed to the alternatives. So
right, and that's kind of what you have to think about it when you ask the differentiator. You have to think about the individual components and what you want them to do versus, well, here's an all-in-one versus here's another solution. You have to think about, what do I need? What do I want in video? What do I want? What do I need in audio? Can I accomplish that in an all-in-one? No, but I can make sure that I can accomplish it in the same form factor if I go a different direction. So yes, and we'll demo a little bit about what some of that may be almost now because it's demo time. So I am going to jump over to a closer view here, and I'm going to back up. And behind me, we've got a solution that is built this way. You probably noticed it in the background. It is on a stand, although you don't really see the stand with a zoomed in image that I'm on now. But we've got a display. This is a 55-inch display. And here's another thing I want to call out about the differentiators here. A lot of these all-in-one options say, here is the size you can have. And it's either one size or it's maybe two sizes max. But modularity gives you that freedom once again to say, I am not going to be stuck with a one-size-fits-all approach. Maybe I need a 55-inch. Maybe I need a 65-inch. Maybe I need a 102 or 105-inch. It goes all the way up and in between, depending on what you're putting in place from a display perspective. But the point is, you get to choose and design that because you're going with the modular approach.
Hey, Josh, real quick, before you go any further, can you stop sharing the PowerPoint?
I just realized I needed to do that. Yes.
See,
good call.
But pro tip, you can always click on the presenter image to see that person, just in case this happens to you in someone else's webinar.
It probably will, because I'll forget again.
It definitely will.
Yeah, it definitely will. So we've got the VBS up top, but very noticeably, there is no touch control in this solution because the screen, the display, this is my touch control. So the bar up top is running Android, and it is running Teams rooms, can be running Zoom rooms, and it has all of the VBS supported video and audio features and functionality that you would expect by ordering a VBS through us. And in this case, we have it on a ViewSonic viewboard here. And you can think about, we have a number of display partners, so you can start to imagine how you may go and put together a different solution that matches your own needs. Post the demo here, we're going to cover a very specific solution that is coming to market near term with a partner that I'm excited to get to in a second here. You'll see kind of what differentiates that solution, and there'll be more information to be had there. But in this case, I've got this ViewSonic viewboard, and I've got the VBS camera here. And I would walk into a room like this, and very simply, if I wanted to, if I didn't want to start a meeting, I could just start the whiteboard in here and start working with whoever it is that I'm in the room with that I need to collaborate with. In this case, I've been invited to this meeting, and I see it on the board, so I just walk and say join. And as soon as I do that, give me a few seconds to work my audio so that we don't have this terrible audio feedback situation. Okay, so.
And then we get the infinity loop. Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Oh, and awesome. I love the like angular tilt that we have going on. Plus, I can watch myself in each frame a little bit more.
So if you were able to spotlight, then you can spotlight whichever one you want, Parker. But
I'm going to spotlight your MTR, Josh, and I'm going to unspotlight your PC, just so that we can see you from that perspective.
And in this case, we're on a VBS where I have said, look, I want to make this. I don't want to use intelligent zoom. I want to showcase the fact that we have the ability to do a 180-degree field of view. So you're getting this wide 180-degree field of view. If this mobile cart was up against the wall in the room, you'd see the entirety of the whole room. But now all my media controls are here on the board. I can come up and mute myself and turn off my video, adjust my volume. I can go in there and say, man, I'm doing a great job, pat on the back, clapping hands.
Woohoo, Josh, woohoo. We're so proud of you.
Thank you. When it comes to the interactive collaboration element, though, whiteboarding, right? That's a big part of what people want to do is whiteboarding. Now, as part of the platform restrictions here, because we are in a webinar specifically, I'm not able to actually launch the webinar from here. If I go to share, I'm not able to start webinar from the share menu here. But when somebody else in a Teams meeting starts that webinar or starts that whiteboard, as Parker has just so generously done for me, it pops up on my screen. And as soon as it's done loading, then I'll have the opportunity in the room to pick up a stylus, use my finger, whatever the case, and start coordinating, right? So I can go up here and I'm gonna get rid of my privacy notice. I'm gonna make sure that we have enhanced ink shapes is there. So now if I go and choose my blue pen, I can sit here and make a fairly decent triangle, but it will go and fix it for me. I can then go and make a green smiley face, and then all the things Microsoft Whiteboard can do with sticky notes, with annotations, drawing things out with the stylus again, all the crazy nonsense that Parker is doing here, as well as everyone else that is playing.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as I did that, I was like, oh, okay, we could have foreseen this.
This is great. Yeah, no, this is I love it.
This is that website where everybody can get one pixel on the page, and you can change one pixel color at a time, and you'll be able to collaborate. But you can imagine, and you can see just how easy this was to do. You don't have to be somebody who's super tech savvy in an organization. Once you have seen that this feature exists, it may inspire some ways that your users could play around with it.
Exactly. Now, and this is great. And everyone, to keep it clean, because this is going to be recorded and put on YouTube later, all right? So, but this is amazing. I'm loving this. I already feel like I am totally immersed in a meeting and a collaboration experience by this modular approach to the way we're doing this meeting. Now, again, going back to that flexibility and choice, if I had a different camera that was some other, industry-based camera that maybe was part of an all-in-one or just some other solution, what would happen there, Parker? What would that experience look like?
Oh, Josh, what a great question. And it's been asked in the chat too. Let me see if I can close our little whiteboard view so that people will be able to get a better idea of what that's going to look like. So I'm going to come in here and see.
And I cannot stop the whiteboard from my side, but I can interact and do cool things. So.
Right. Okay.
But again, it goes back what Parker's about to get into there is, like I said earlier, I chose to have this be a full panoramic view instead of intelligent zoom for my settings in this case. But I have that choice because I chose the video bar that I was going to use, and I now know what settings are available to me.
All right, and so now I'm joining a second time. I've spotlighted my second self, so I'm hoping that other people can see it since my second self is in my room with my first self. Okay, great. that there's some magic happening on the technical back end that prevents me from seeing it, which is cool. So I've got a similar display here in the room. I've got a camera in the same spot that Josh has his camera. And as you can see, my camera is set for automatic zooming. So it's looking right at me. And when I'm seated here in front of the display, the camera has no problem seeing me. But because this is an interactive display, the whole point is for me to get up and walk up to this display to start using it. And you'll notice that as soon as I did that, now that I'm standing at the display, where I might stand if I was going to start working on our whiteboard over here, let me get my little pen out. All of a sudden, you can't see me because I'm no longer part of that field of view of the camera. And I think this is
rather unfortunate.
This is the really critical thing, because if you are looking to implement this touch technology into a meeting space, and as soon as someone goes up and does the thing you were hoping that they would do, the remote participant can't see them anymore. All of a sudden, they're getting a discouraging, action. Why would they go up and do that if now, in order to talk, I have to come back to a different place so that you can see me, and then I can go up and write some more, and back and forth and back and forth. Versus Josh can be anywhere, so long as he is physically not, behind the board, and you're still going to be able to see him.
So, for example, as you can see from the other view of me, I am literally standing right at the edge of this display. I am all the way up against the edge. But 180-degree field of view, you are still able to get me. And if I had intelligent zoom, it would be able to zoom in on me over here. If I had, another mode, it would be able to pick me up anywhere in the room because of that capability. The other thing I'll point out on the video quality side is I believe, at least the way I'm seeing myself here, that you can see me very clearly on screen. My face doesn't look washed out. It's a little dimmer in the room, but I feel like my features are clear. And I have a window behind me where the blinds are not closed. The blinds are open. I'm letting all that sunlight in. And I am not just silhouetted in this image. So choosing the quality of your camera, the quality of your mics and speakers that are in play in those rooms, making sure you're customizing that experience for what you truly need and not just what you get, that is really the magic that I want to drive home on, why you want to think about going this route. And that kind of wraps up, unless you had any other examples you wanted to throw in there on choice and flexibility in the feature set, Parker. That kind of wraps up our demo. I kind of want to go back to the whiteboard because that was just all kinds of crazy fun.
I only just figured out how to close the whiteboard. And of course, it was a giant dedicated button that said stop sharing. So naturally, I didn't see it. I was completely blind to its existence.
That is amazing. I'm going to hang up here and jump back over to that side.
I was going to say, we'll switch our video back around so that we both minimize confusion.
Okay, and change my view back to where we're here. Okay, that concludes the demo there for the most part. So hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you kind of, the idea of a mobile cart is a fairly easy idea to see, right? You understand what it's for and how you're going to end up using it. But understanding why you want to go modular versus all-in-one is important. Why you want to have that flexibility of choice and freedom is important. And as you can see, it makes a difference. One size doesn't always fit all. So having choice is key there. I am going to go back into presenting again here. And see if we can pick up where we left off, or if I need to skip ahead. Resume. Okay. So back to our presentation. I now get to be the first to talk about a brand new partnership that is about to be announced, and it's not been announced yet by our partner, but I was given full permission, full thumbs up. I absolved myself of any responsibility because I was definitely.
Josh, this is recorded, so like
I know. But I was given the green light, so I'm going to do it. We're going to jump into this, but this is the collaboration that's coming up here, and is with Avocor, who is extremely well known in the interactive touch display area. And up to this point, Avocor has had a program called Collab Touch that's been around for a couple of years. And in a couple of weeks' time, they will formally announce and release their press release on it, going into all the different details of it, that they are expanding this program to include Jabra. Very, very cool stuff, very exciting stuff to see. And this is kind of a unique offering for a couple of reasons that we will get into there. We're able to answer some questions now, and some of them we are going to punt until the actual announcement by Avocor, because there are some things that, depending on the questions, they will be announcing at that time. But for now, we can talk about what these solutions look like and hopefully really drive home why choice and flexibility is so important in a room like this. Looking at these options here, Avocor has a number of series of displays. And in each of these series, they've got a number of sizes. Now, this is important because it doesn't just give you choice in which size display you want, but also on the features of your display.
Okay, it wasn't just me. Josh suddenly disappeared for everyone. This is funny. Okay, good. I'm glad that there are people with video on, and so that way I can see. We don't have to wait until somebody gives the thumbs up to unmute themselves. But as Josh was saying, I'll do my best to cover because he's the one who is the king of slides. I see they're coming back. I hope Josh is coming back.
He's back.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes. The team meeting completely just disappeared. It went away. So apologies.
I'm going to blame user error, Josh.
Yeah, we can blame it on me. I'm willing to take that. But in all honesty, I'm serious. It was not me. It was Teams. But everyone says that every day. So, grain of salt.
I will admit, Josh, at the very beginning of this webinar, I actually closed my Teams meeting accidentally and then had to rejoin. You were talking, though. It was so smooth, nobody noticed. But that was truly a user error problem on my part. I'm not just trying to throw you under the user error bus.
Well, it's, at the end of the day, people will probably be like, yeah, it was a user error, that guy. But anyway, I'm back. Yeah. I'm back. We're reloading. And so where I was going with the choice on the display side is that there are a number of features per series that actually come into play with the display. There are different levels of sensitivity to the touch that's available. There are different ways that you can interact with touch. For example, some displays may only be able to do a stylus. Others are much more receptive to the finger or even the palm. And so there's a lot of choices to be made on which style display you want, which size you want, and what is the word I'm looking for here that I'm drawing a blank on, Parker? 21:9 versus 16:9.
Which aspect ratio?
Aspect ratio. There it is.
Which also resolution would come into play, but aspect ratio is the one you wanted.
That's what I was looking for. Aspect ratio. Thank you. Thank you for saving me. And so you get a lot of different options through the Collab Touch program by Avocor when you go this way. And so as you can see, they've broken it down into 3 different steps that this announcement will include for kind of getting set up. First is choosing your display plus the kit that they have. I'm going to talk about this kit in a little more depth in a minute because it's kind of key in choosing one of these. But that kit is a really handy differentiator for them in a display standpoint. Once you've figured out which display you want, and of course, the option that you don't see on here is the mounting, the stand as well, because you don't have to put these on a stand. These can be wall mounted if that's the way you need to have them. Step 2 is choose the way that you want to have Jabra on board. Do you want a VBS solution, which is the Android-based solution, so that you are literally putting just the bar up there, running the operating system, and that's it? Simplifies cabling and everything. Or in a couple of these situations, you may want to go the Windows-based route, and then you could choose the Panicast 50 room system. I think more often than not, for most of these scenarios, it will be the Android route with the VBS, but we'll, again, cover why you would go that in just a second. And finally, you'll want that screen mount in there for the cart. Now, that gives you the flexibility to have the device mounted on top, like you see back here, but you might also have your display raised a bit higher on the cart, and you may, depending on what type of room it is, people are sitting down at a table, you may want the bar mounted on the underside. The screen mount that we provide gives you flexibility and choice there. So you've got that as an optional component. Again, it's optional because if you're going to wall mount things, then you can wall mount the VBS and the Panicast 50. Once you've kind of made your choices, then the bundle is put together at distribution, and more details are to come on that as Avocor makes the announcement in the coming weeks here before InfoComm. But it gets all bundled up, sent to you, and then minimal amount of setup is required, and you're off to the races. So why the Avocor Collab Touch? They put a few key talking points here. I'm not going to read them word for word, but you will see that they pretty much mirror the things we have been talking about. One of the things I haven't mentioned here is under that scalability section, and that's the fact that with Avocor and Jabra and this solution, you've got cloud-based management options for the devices. You obviously have cloud-based solutions from us that you can use to manage the VBS, the Panicast 50, to update, to change feature sets, etc. And then Avocor has their own solution, Fuse, that will allow you to manage your fleet of Avocor displays and update them and do whatever you need to from a cloud management perspective. We've covered modularity, investment protection. We also talked about this, but again, worth mentioning one more time. If you get an all-in-one, you are pigeonholed into that use case. It is an all-in-one, and that's what you're going to use it for. And if that need changes, oh well. If you go a modular route, you can pivot from your use case and use these components in different use cases into the future. Looking at all the bottom right-hand side here, this is where things get a little more granular, and there's a little more details in terms of product numbers and stuff. I'm not going to get into all that, but the key here is you've got all these different series, and the only one where they're non-touch is that L series. And that is because it is a 21:9 option that is 105 inches. That is a very big display, and 21:9 is perfect for Microsoft Teams rooms, signature rooms, to be specific, right? This is where you get front row coming into play. And so in many of those rooms, when you think about how those are set up, usually there is a half circle table in front of a signature room, and you have people sitting around, and there's not normally going to be someone approaching the display in those cases, so they don't really need to touch those displays. They can use a controller at the center of the table. But if you do want 105-inch 21:9, they also have touch options. And the same with the E-Series. There, the E-Series is if maybe you want that really big option that's bigger than the 65 and 85 inches you see in those all-in-ones, but you don't want to go quite to 105, then they've got a 92-inch option as well that's touch-enabled. So flexibility, flexibility, flexibility is the name of the game here. One size does not fit all is the point we're driving home. Now, one of the key areas that makes Avocor and the Collab Touch route such a compelling option when it comes to setup and cable management and power versus other potential choices is that Collab Touch accessory kit, which has been purpose-built for these types of solutions. So that first plate we see up top there called the power adapter plate mounts onto the back of the display. And then as you see in the image there, it splits off power. So that bottom cable on the right-hand side is coming from the Avocor power plug that's plugged into the display. That top one is the VBS cable that would come down and attach right into the plate. So the power cord isn't dangling. It doesn't have to be routed anywhere particular. It has a specific place to be held. It's sent into this power splitter so that you have a single power cable coming off of this mobile cart solution or even a wall mount solution, single power cable. That streamlines things quite a bit. And especially in a mobile scenario, you don't, to answer a question that was earlier put in the chat, there is not currently any plan to have a battery pack on board that would let you roll around without plugging in, right? So that's not an option. But you can streamline the fact that you need to plug in by having a single power cable in those instances. So that is one area where they kind of help streamline that whole thing. The other area is that cable, that unified cable that you see below. Now, there are a number of cables that will come out of the back of the VBS. You've got a USB cable for one, because in order to enable the touch piece, The VBS needs a touch USB cable coming back to it. So there's going to be a USB connection. There's going to be an HDMI connection back to the display. There's going to be a power connection, which we already talked about that being handled separately. And then there's going to be Ethernet. Now, there's a caveat on the Ethernet there, but the Ethernet, HDMI, and USB are all unified into this single cable that runs between the display and the VBS. So that means that once you plug it all in, you've got one cable to manage on the back of this display, in addition to the power. Now, to further take that, they include the adhesive anchors and zip ties so that you're able to decide where you want your cable placement to be. It may be different on a mobile cart than on a mounted setup on the wall. So you decide where you're going to place the cables on the back of the display. You put your adhesive anchors there and use zip ties to make it all nice and clean, tidy, everything in its place. So the value that this brings is, again, a single power cable. That is a differentiator from other solutions where you're going to have power to the display and power to the bar, 2 power cables, and then a single Ethernet cable coming off. Now, the AviCore displays themselves are Wi-Fi enabled. So you don't need Ethernet coming from them. You can just Wi-Fi connect them. At this point in time, the VBS requires that Ethernet connection. However, if you joined us for a previous session back in, I think, January, where we were reviewing value packs from previous months, and where Eric Taylor also talked about upcoming updates in value packs to the VBS, as well as the Panicast 50, Wi-Fi support on the VBS is going to be provided in a future update. So when you get to that point and you update the VBS, at that stage, you could drop the Ethernet cable altogether if you wanted to run your meetings over Wi-Fi and you had a Wi-Fi environment you were confident in doing that in. Then you could just have a single power cable coming out, and that's it at that point in time. Again, future update, asterisk, note that.
I really like the CYA here. And
I'm all over that.
Framed the value of going back to watch the old webinars to see what did we say.
Said by Eric Taylor and not me. So that, also.
We should have just pulled that clip to replay that clip as a direct answer here. That was
yeah. No, it was a great session. If you did miss that, again, you can watch these. So go back to the landing page, rewatch the value pack session, because beyond this topic, there was a lot of good information in that particular session, and Eric did an awesome job breaking it down.
Maybe we need Eric to do another one of those, because we just released a value pack for VBS, and we're not too far away from a P50 value pack. So,
as well as another VBS update. So there's a couple things that are on the horizon. That's a good idea. You should have Eric come back for that. The last item there, consider placement of that cable, specifically of your cable placement, specifically when you're going to be VESA mounting this on a wall, right? Know where those VESA mounts are going to be, where the actual hardware is going to be, how it's going to fit against the wall, and be cognizant of where you're placing the cables in that regard. But this is kind of that differentiator there. We are running shorter on time, so I'm going to cover these last couple pretty quickly here. But a couple quick benefits of the mobile stand option. Obviously, you got the flexibility in your location for where the device is going to be, both in room and between rooms. You don't have to put any holes in walls. Cable running is not a concern. You're just running the cables on the back of the display. You have an optional tray that you can be put on that stand as well if you go with the stand, so that if you want to put something up there, you can. If you want to store things up there like styluses, et cetera, you can. Then, of course, you've got the support for all display sizes on that mobile stand, which is huge because we're talking about some large stand or some large displays. And the fact that you can bottom mount or top mount the video bar. Considerations there. Again, make sure you've got power at the location you want to move it to. You can't just, we can't just up and say, I'm going to take this outside and we're going to do a meeting outside and there's no power nearby. That is something you got to think about. Where am I going to plug into for power? And then, of course, the internet connection requirement. You need a place to plug in Ethernet currently, one Ethernet connection, In the future, it may not be a need for you if you're going with Wi-Fi on both devices. And then if we go with the wall-mounted option, the benefits there is that you don't have the added cost of the stand. It's a great option if you're going to be going with a 21:9 Microsoft Teams signature room for both touch and non-touch environments. And then if you have smaller huddle spaces where you really don't want a touch controller or a table, it's great for those as well. You don't have a stand cluttering that already small space. It's just touch on the wall. Considerations here, again, power, make sure you've got power, make sure you've got the right Ethernet connection, and then perform the cabling before you do the wall mounting, instead of getting it on the wall and then saying, oh, yeah, I have to now run all the cables back here. If you've ever wall mounted a display, you're no stranger to that anyway. But it's definitely something you want to make sure you do ahead of time. Whereas you don't have to do that when you're putting it on a mobile cart. You can throw all the pieces on there and do all the cabling later, and it's pretty convenient. But that brings us to the last little piece of this is, if this is something you're wanting to get involved with and know how to pursue, again, Avocor will be making their formal announcement in the coming weeks before InfoComm, and at that time, they are going to announce the distribution partners that will be utilized and the resellers involved in that, so you can utilize your resellers to go through them at that time. So look to their announcement for more details there. When you're ordering, you're going to be identifying all the part numbers from, through your reseller that we identified earlier on the previous slide. There'll be information on that from Avocor on their site. And then, like I just said, you would place your order with that associated distributor using those SKUs, and they'll bundle it together for you. And there's benefit to that. So that's how it's going to happen. But I'm going to kick that can a little further down the road and say, please watch their announcement. That's where they'll kind of bring the whole story together and put all those resources on their Collab Touch landing page. So we come to the almighty Q&A slide. Although I know we've already been doing Q&A on the side. And again, I will give good, straightforward answers. I put sarcasm free most of the time because I've had, Parker as my co-presenter, and as you can see, sarcasm happens. So,
oh yeah, I give nuanced and evasive answers. So
there we go. There we
go. Whatever you're here for, we can deliver.
So you may want to, when you ask your question, direct it to an individual person. But totally your call. And I know I ran us right up against the end here, but any lingering questions? I see Ian's got a hand up. Let's go ahead and unmute Ian.
All right, Ian, your mic is allowed, so you can unmute yourself now.
Hello.
Hey,
good. I just I work for Call One, and we actually have experience rooms in our facility for all the various competitors. I'm sure you might be aware of them, but one of the things I've noticed with the meeting boards of some of your competitors is if you're the presenter standing right beside the board, you can't see the screen. It literally, because of the LCD type, it's completely gray. Can I see what it looks like the side of your display?
You want to see when a presenter is standing. You want their here. Let me. I think I know what you're asking for. Let me. I'm trying to disable my background blur, but I keep turning my camera off. So okay. So if I grab this guy and stand right here, that's like right side along. Cool. I'm doing my best to respectfully not show the mysterious competitor device that's sitting up there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's yeah. Right. So you can actually still see it, because there's two different brands that I've seen now that it doesn't even look like the screen's on. So
yeah, no, not at all.
All right, thank you very much. That's exactly what I wanted to see.
Yeah, thanks for raising the question and coming off mute. It's great to hear from you, and thanks for being here. Anyone else? Any others? Do we have any lingering things in the chat or the Q&A app that we needed to address? We have not. Okay, everyone's like, look, we're at time. Let's call it good. So, all right. Awesome. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you for being a part of this. This was a fun one, especially the whiteboarding scenario. I'm looking forward to seeing that in the recording. Keep an eye on those emails in case you were the lucky winner. And I hope that you have bookmarked the landing page, and that we will see you for the next Technically Speaking. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.